The waves crashed against the shore with unforgiving force as Finn Ivers spotted the woman struggling against the rip current, her arms flailing desperately as the ocean pulled her farther from safety. Without a moment's hesitation, he dropped his son's beach bucket in the sand and sprinted toward the water, ignoring the burning sensation in his lungs as he plunged into the churning sea. Finn had worked as a lifeguard in his college days before life had taken unexpected turns, leaving him a single father with barely enough money to pay rent. But those instincts never left him. His powerful strokes cut through the water as he fought against the current, his eyes fixed on the woman whose struggles were becoming weaker by the second. "Hold on," he shouted over the roar of the waves. "I'm coming, try to stay calm." The woman's eyes, wide with panic, locked onto his as he reached her. Her dark hair was plastered against her face, and she was gasping for breath. "I've got you," Finn said firmly, wrapping his arm around her. "Don't fight me, just breathe." Together they moved parallel to the shore until they escaped the pull of the current, and then Finn guided them back to the beach. By the time they reached the sand, a small crowd had gathered, including Finn's 6-year-old son, Mason, who stood clutching his plastic shovel with worry etched across his small face. "Dad," Mason called out, running toward them as Finn helped the woman onto the sand. The woman collapsed onto her knees, coughing and sputtering. Finn knelt beside her, his hand on her back. "Deep breaths," he encouraged. "You're safe now." When she finally looked up, Finn was struck by her eyes, deep amber in color and filled with gratitude. Despite her bedraggled appearance, there was something unmistakably elegant about her. "Thank you," she managed between breaths. "I thought," she broke off, unable to finish the sentence. "You're okay now," Finn reassured her, suddenly aware of his own ragged breath and the way his worn swim trunks and faded t-shirt clung to his body. "I'm Finn. This is my son, Mason." "Hi," Mason said shyly, partially hiding behind his father's leg. The woman smiled, and something in Finn's chest tightened. "I'm Olivia Harper," she said, extending a trembling hand, "and I owe you my life." It wasn't until later that evening, after Olivia had insisted on buying them dinner at the beachside restaurant that Finn would normally consider far beyond his budget, that he realized exactly who she was. The Olivia Harper, founder of Harper Innovations, one of the fastest-growing tech companies on the West Coast, and according to the business magazine's Mason School, collected for recycling projects worth several $100 million. Finn watched as she chatted animatedly with Mason about his first-grade science project, completely at ease despite her earlier ordeal. Her wet hair had dried into loose waves, and she'd changed into clothes purchased from one of the boutiques near the beach, a simple sundress that probably cost more than Finn's monthly rent. "So what do you do, Finn?" Olivia asked, turning her attention back to him after Mason had excused himself to check out the restaurant's aquarium display. Finn hesitated. "I'm between careers at the moment," he said, the phrase sounding hollow even to his own ears. "I work construction during the day and tend bar 3 nights a week. It's not ideal, but it pays the bills and gives me time with Mason." Instead of the polite dismissal he expected, Olivia leaned forward with genuine interest. "That sounds challenging." "How long have you been on your own with Mason?" 3 years, Finn replied, surprised by her question. "His mom decided parenthood wasn't for her. She's in Europe now, I think." He shrugged, not wanting to dwell on the abandonment that still stung. "Mason's worth every sacrifice." Olivia's eyes softened. "I can see that. He's a wonderful boy." "The best," Finn agreed, pride momentarily overshadowing his self-consciousness. "We manage okay. More than okay, I'd say. You've raised a kind, curious child." Olivia smiled, then added, "And you saved my life today." "I'm not sure I've properly thanked you for that." Finn felt the heat rise to his cheeks. Anyone would have done the same, but they didn't. You did. Her fingers brushed against his on the table, and Finn felt an unexpected jolt of electricity at the contact. "I'd like to repay you somehow." Finn withdrew his hand. "That's not necessary, really." Olivia studied him for a moment. "I respect that, but would you at least let me take you and Mason on a proper outing tomorrow? There's an amazing marine sanctuary nearby that I think he'd love." Finn hesitated. This woman lived in a world entirely different from his own. Tomorrow, she would return to her luxury condo or mansion, or wherever millionaire tech entrepreneurs lived, and he would go back to juggling 2 jobs and trying to make ends meet. But Mason had reappeared at the table, his eyes lighting up at the mention of the marine sanctuary. "Can we go, Dad, please?" Finn looked from his son's hopeful face to Olivia's warm smile and felt his resistance crumbling. "One condition," he said finally. "Let us pack the lunch," Olivia beamed. "It's a deal." The marine sanctuary exceeded all expectations. Mason raced from exhibit to exhibit, his excitement contagious as they observed sea turtles, touched starfish in the tide pools, and watched in awe as trainers worked with rescued dolphins. "This is the coolest day ever," Mason declared, his face pressed against the glass of the seal habitat. Finn couldn't help but agree. Watching Mason's joy was enough, but he found himself equally captivated by Olivia. She moved through the world with confidence, but without the arrogance he might have expected. She listened intently when Mason spoke, asked thoughtful questions, and seemed genuinely interested in their lives. During lunch, simple sandwiches and homemade cookies that Finn had stayed up late preparing, Olivia sat cross-legged on their picnic blanket and shared stories of her own childhood in a small town in Oregon. "Most people assume I was born into money," she admitted. "But my parents ran a hardware store that barely kept us afloat. I worked my way through college on scholarships and part-time jobs." "How did you end up founding Harper Innovations?" Finn asked, genuinely curious. Olivia's expression turned reflective. "A lot of hard work, some good timing, and an idea I couldn't let go of." She glanced at Mason, who was focused on feeding bits of bread to a nearby seagull. "I developed an algorithm that helps predict medical outcomes based on patient data. It started as my graduate thesis and evolved from there." "That's impressive," Finn said, feeling the gulf between their worlds widen even as he felt increasingly drawn to her. "It's just work," Olivia replied with a shrug. "Important work, but at the end of the day." She trailed off, looking at Mason with a soft expression. "There are other things that matter more." When the day ended, Finn expected a polite goodbye. Instead, Olivia asked for his number. "I'd like to see you again," she said simply. "Both of you." Over the following weeks, to Finn's continued amazement, Olivia became a regular part of their lives. She joined them for movie nights in their small apartment, brought takeout when Finn worked late shifts, and never once made him feel self-conscious about the stark differences in their lifestyles. On a warm Saturday morning in July, while Mason was at a friend's birthday party, Olivia suggested they take a walk along the same beach where they'd first met. "I keep thinking about that day," she said, as they strolled barefoot through the shallow water. "How different my life would be if you hadn't been here." Finn smiled. "You'd probably have been rescued by someone else." Olivia shook her head. "I don't just mean the rescue, I mean everything that came after." She stopped walking and turned to face him. "Finn, my life before I met you was all about work, success, achievement. I had no idea what I was missing." Finn's heart raced. "Olivia, let me finish," she said softly. "I know there's this gap between us. You think I don't notice how you sometimes pull back when I suggest certain restaurants or activities, how you insist on paying your share even when I invite you." Finn looked away, unable to deny it. "Your world is different from mine." "But it doesn't have to be," Olivia said, taking his hand. "I didn't fall for your bank account, Finn. I fell for you, for your integrity, your devotion to Mason, the way you make me laugh and challenge me to see the world differently." Finn felt something inside him breaking open. "I can't offer you the life you're accustomed to. I don't want you to." Olivia stepped closer. "I want a life with meaning, connection, the things money can't buy, things I never understood until I met you and Mason." When she kissed him, Finn forgot about the differences between them. He forgot about his struggles and her success. All that existed was the woman in his arms and the unmistakable feeling that his life had irrevocably changed. But reality had a way of intruding. 3 days later, Finn was working his construction job when his phone rang with a call from Mason's summer program. His son had fallen and broken his arm during a field trip. Finn rushed to the hospital, only to discover that his insurance wouldn't cover the orthopedic specialist who was on duty. We can transfer him to county, but there will be a wait, the intake nurse explained apologetically. Mason, pale and frightened, looked up at Finn from the emergency room bed. Does it have to be fixed by a doctor, Dad? It really hurts. Finn swallowed hard. Of course it does, buddy, don't worry. Before he could figure out what to do, Olivia appeared in the doorway, her expression worried. Mason's program called me too, she explained. I was listed as your emergency contact. Relief washed over Finn, followed immediately by shame. He stepped into the hallway with her, keeping his voice low. There's an issue with my insurance. They're suggesting we transfer to county. Olivia's expression hardened. Absolutely not, I'll handle this. Finn felt his pride rise up. Olivia, I can't let you. This isn't about you, Finn, she interrupted firmly. It's about Mason. He's in pain and he needs treatment now. Her voice softened. Please let me help. Finn looked back at his son, whose eyes were squeezed shut against the pain, and nodded reluctantly. Within minutes, Olivia had arranged for the top pediatric orthoptist to see Mason. The doctor arrived quickly, treating Mason with gentle efficiency while explaining each step of the process. By afternoon, Mason's arm was in a cast, and he was proudly choosing which color Sharpies his dad and Olivia should use to sign it first. Later, after Mason had fallen asleep in his hospital bed, Finn sat beside Olivia in the quiet room. Thank you, he said simply. Olivia took his hand. You don't need to thank me. I do, Finn insisted, but it also made something clear to me. What's that? She asked, a note of apprehension in her voice. Finn looked at her directly. I can't do this, the gap between our worlds is too wide. Olivia's face fell. Finn, that's not, I couldn't help my own son today, Finn said, the words painful to speak aloud. Do you know what that feels like? To stand there helpless while your child is in pain because you can't afford the right doctor. But that's exactly why what? Why you should swoop in and save us. Finn stood up, running his hands through his hair. And then what happens? You pay for everything. I become dependent on you. What kind of man would that make me in Mason's eyes? Olivia stood too, her voice low but intense. This isn't about your masculinity, Finn. It's about letting someone who cares about you help when they can. Would you have hesitated to help me if our situations were reversed? That's different. It's exactly the same, Olivia insisted. You're so busy protecting your pride that you can't see what you're throwing away. A partnership. A chance for both of us to be better together than we are apart. Finn shook his head. You deserve someone from your world, Olivia. Someone who can meet you as an equal. That's what you don't get, she said, tears forming in her eyes. You already are my equal in all the ways that matter, but if you can't see that. She gathered her purse. I should go. Finn watched her leave, ignoring the voice inside him screaming to call her back. The next few weeks passed in a blur of work and caring for Mason. Finn threw himself into extra shifts, determined to pay off the portion of the hospital bill that his insurance did cover. Mason asked about Olivia constantly, and each time, Finn made excuses that sounded hollow even to his own ears. Did you have a fight? Mason finally asked one evening as Finn tucked him into bed. Finn sat on the edge of the bed, choosing his words carefully. Sometimes adults have complicated feelings, buddy. Mason considered this. Like when I'm mad but also sad at the same time. Something like that. Do you miss her? Mason asked. Because I do, and I think she misses us too. Finn felt his throat tighten. Why do you think that? Mason reached for his backpack beside the bed and pulled out a small envelope. She came to see me at lunch today. She gave me this for you. Finn took the envelope, surprised and a little unsettled that Olivia had visited Mason at his summer program. She just showed up. She called the office first, Mason explained. She brought me a book about sea creatures and helped me practice one-handed origami. He yawned. She said she didn't want to make you uncomfortable, but she missed talking to me. Finn nodded, emotion welling up. That was thoughtful of her. After Mason fell asleep, Finn opened the envelope with trembling fingers. Inside was a simple note card with Olivia's elegant handwriting. Finn, I've respected your decision to end things between us, but I can't stop thinking about what might have been. I've realized something important. Wealth isn't just about money. It's about having the courage to accept love when it's offered and the wisdom to know that strength isn't about doing everything alone. If you ever change your mind, I'll be at our beach on Saturday at sunset. Yours always, Olivia. Finn read the note 3 times, then set it aside and stared out the window at the night sky. The woman who had come to mean so much to him in such a short time was giving him one last chance. But had anything really changed? The differences between them remained. The next day, Finn was installing drywall when his coworker mentioned a news segment he'd seen. That tech billionaire woman, the one who built that medical software company she's selling her business, said something about wanting to focus on things that matter more than money. Crazy, right? I'd be on a permanent vacation if I had that kind of cash. Finn nearly dropped his drill. Harper Innovations. Olivia Harper is selling her company. That's the one. Got offered some insane amount. Said she's keeping enough to be comfortable, but putting most into a foundation for medical care for kids or something. That evening, Finn searched online and found the interview. There was Olivia, poised and professional in a blue blazer, explaining her decision to a surprised business reporter. I've come to understand that success isn't measured by the size of your bank account, she said on screen. It's measured by the impact you have on others. This foundation will help ensure that no child goes without proper medical care because of financial constraints. The reporter leaned forward. Miss Harper, this is quite a dramatic life change. Was there a specific catalyst? Olivia's expression softened. Let's just say I met someone who helped me see what truly matters. Finn sat back, stunned. Was he that someone? Had his situation with Mason inspired her decision? The thought was overwhelming. Saturday arrived, and Finn found himself pacing his apartment, the hours ticking by as he debated what to do. Mason watched him with knowing eyes. We should go to the beach, Mason said finally. I want to collect shells. Finn looked at his son suspiciously. The beach, Mason nodded innocently. It's a nice day. By the time they arrived, the sun was low on the horizon, painting the sky in brilliant oranges and pinks. Mason immediately ran toward the water's edge, and Finn followed more slowly, scanning the shoreline. And then he saw her. Olivia stood near the spot where he had pulled her from the water months ago, her white sundress fluttering in the breeze. When she spotted them, her smile was tentative, hopeful. Mason reached her first, throwing his good arm around her waist. I knew Dad would come. He's been super mopey without you. Olivia laughed, hugging him back before looking up at Finn, who had stopped a few feet away. Is that true? She asked softly. Have you been mopey? Finn took a deep breath. I saw your interview, Olivia nodded. I was hoping you might. You're selling your company. I am. She stepped toward him. Not because of you, but because of what knowing you has taught me. Finn struggled to find the right words. Olivia, I've been an idiot. Her lips curved into a smile. That's a start. I was so focused on what I couldn't give you that I didn't see what I could. He moved closer. I was afraid of depending on you financially, but I never stopped to consider that there are many kinds of dependency, many kinds of strength. Olivia reached for his hand. Like the strength it takes to accept help, Finn nodded. I don't want to be apart from you anymore. These weeks have been. He glanced at Mason, who was now hunched over examining a seashell, pretending not to listen. They've been empty. For me too, Olivia admitted. I kept thinking about what you said, that I deserve someone from my world. But Finn, don't you see, you are my world now, you and Mason. The sun dipped lower, casting golden light across the water. Finn pulled Olivia into his arms, all his doubts finally silenced by the certainty in her eyes. I love you, he said simply. Olivia's smile was radiant. I love you too. Mason appeared beside them, tugging at their hands. Does this mean Olivia's coming home with us? Because I have a lot of catching up to do on my cast signatures. Finn looked at Olivia questioningly, and she nodded. I'd like that very much. Over the next months, they built a life together that bridged their different worlds. Finn started his own construction company with a small business loan that he insisted on securing himself, though Olivia provided valuable advice on the business plan. The company specialized in affordable housing developments, and soon, Finn was hiring additional crews to keep up with demand. Olivia's foundation flourished, providing medical care for thousands of children. She worked shorter hours and spent afternoons helping Mason with homework or accompanying Finn to his job sites, genuinely interested in his work. On a crisp fall day a year after their reunion on the beach, Finn took Olivia back to the marine sanctuary where they'd had their first real date. Mason was at a school event, giving them a rare afternoon alone. "Remember this spot?" Finn asked as they reached the picnic area where they'd shared sandwiches and stories. Olivia smiled. "How could I forget? I think that was the day I knew I was falling in love with you." Finn took her hand and guided her to sit on a bench overlooking the ocean. "You know, when I pulled you out of that rip current, I had no idea you'd end up saving me too." Olivia squeezed his hand. "We saved each other." "We did," Finn agreed, "and I want to keep doing that every day for the rest of our lives." He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small velvet box. "I've been saving for this since we got back together. No loans, no help, just me wanting to give you something that represents my commitment to you." Olivia's eyes widened as he opened the box to reveal a simple but elegant diamond ring. "Finn," she breathed. "Olivia Harper, will you marry me? Not because of what either of us has or doesn't have, but because together we have everything we need." Tears spilled down Olivia's cheeks as she nodded. "Yes," she whispered. 1,000 times yes. When they told Mason that evening, his reaction was one of exasperation. "Finally, I've been waiting forever." The wedding took place on their beach at sunset the following spring. Mason served as best man, proudly carrying the rings. They kept the ceremony small, with only close friends and family in attendance. Olivia wore a simple white dress, not unlike the one she'd worn the day Finn had nearly let her go. Finn, in a charcoal suit that Olivia insisted looked perfect on him, couldn't take his eyes off her as she walked toward him. Their vows were honest reflections of their journey from a desperate rescue in turbulent waters to finding solid ground together. They spoke of learning from each other, of building a bridge between different worlds, and of the strength that comes from true partnership. "You didn't just save me from drowning that day," Olivia said, her voice steady despite the emotion shining in her eyes. "You saved me from a life half-lived. You showed me what it means to have real wealth to love and be loved completely." Finn's voice was husky with emotion as he responded. "You taught me that strength isn't about doing everything alone. It's about having the courage to let someone in, to accept love in all its forms. I promise to remember that lesson every day as your husband." 2 years later, they welcomed a daughter, Emma, who had her mother's amber eyes and her father's determined spirit. Mason took his role as big brother seriously, reading to her every night and teaching her to identify seashells on their family beach walks. Their home, a comfortable but not extravagant house overlooking the ocean, became a gathering place for friends from all walks of life. Finn's construction colleagues mingled easily with Olivia's former tech associates. What mattered wasn't where people came from or what they owned, but the connections they formed. On the 5th anniversary of the day they met, Finn and Olivia returned once more to the beach. Mason, now 11, was teaching 5-year-old Emma how to build a proper sandcastle a short distance away. "Sometimes I still can't believe this is my life," Finn admitted, his arm around Olivia as they watched their children play. "If you told me that day what rescuing you would lead to." Olivia leaned her head against his shoulder. "Would you have still jumped in?" Finn laughed. "In a heartbeat, though I might have been even more nervous talking to you afterward, knowing what was at stake." "I'm glad you didn't know," Olivia said, turning to face him. "I'm glad we got to discover each other without expectations. It made everything we built together that much more genuine." Finn pulled her close, kissing her with the same feeling of wonder he'd experienced the first time. "I love you, Olivia Ivers." "And I love you, Finn Ivers," she replied. "My hero, my heart, my home." As the sun began to set, casting golden light across the water, they called the children to join them. Together, the 4 of them walked along the shore, their footprints merging in the wet sand, a family forged by a current that had tried to pull them apart, but ultimately brought them together in the most unexpected and perfect way.